If Solomon became the wealthiest man in history by applying God's wisdom, why are you still trusting broken strategies from people who don't even believe in the God you serve? You say you want kingdom wealth, but are you building like a king or hustling like the world? You're praying for overflow but making decisions from fear. You say you want God's provision, but you keep chasing man's approval, man's systems, and man-made results. Let me ask you something. The issue isn't God's promises. It's your pattern. You've believed the lie that faith and finances don't mix, that humility means staying small, that money isn't spiritual. But Solomon's life destroys those lies. You are not just a believer. You are a builder. You are not called to survive. You are called to govern. You are not just saved for heaven. You are positioned for impact here. But as long as you ignore the principles that produce kingdom wealth, you'll keep calling financial struggle God's will, when it's really just disobedience to wisdom. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact biblical business model Solomon used to create unstoppable influence, consistent income, and purpose-driven prosperity. This is not theory. This is not fluff. This is the blueprint that still works today. Stay with me. Because by the end, you'll stop asking, can God really bless me financially? And you'll start living like the kingdom builder He designed you to be. You'll know exactly how to shift from just praying for wealth to building it God's way. And we want to hear from you. What's the number one financial mindset you feel like God is challenging in your life right now? Drop it in the comments. If you're ready to rise as a kingdom builder, go ahead, like, subscribe, and share this with someone else who's ready to stop surviving and start building. Because here at God Built, we don't just believe in success. We build it with purpose, power, and the principles of the King. Now let's talk about why Solomon's wealth actually mattered. You see, the world talks about wealth like it's a scoreboard. How much you've made, what you drive, who knows your name. But in the kingdom of God, wealth is never the goal. It's a tool, a servant, a signal that points to something greater. Let's go to 1 Kings 10:1-2, where we meet the Queen of Sheba. The Bible says, when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. Did you catch that? His fame was not about Solomon himself. It wasn't because he was charismatic, had great marketing, or was trying to build his platform. No, his fame was concerning the name of the Lord. That means everything Solomon built, the palace, the temple, the systems, the economy, it all pointed back to God. The Queen of Sheba didn't travel hundreds of miles because Solomon was a celebrity. She came because his excellence was testifying to the greatness of God. Let that sink in. You can be known in the kingdom, but only to the degree that your life reveals God's glory. Solomon didn't set out to be famous. He set out to be faithful. And as a result, kings and queens showed up at his door asking, "How are you doing this?" That's how it works in the kingdom. The moment you stop building to prove something and start building to glorify someone, God puts a spotlight on what you do. Because now, you're no longer competing with the world, you're representing heaven. Let's go deeper. In today's culture, we're told to build a brand, grow your influence, market yourself. And listen, there's nothing wrong with strategy, but if your brand is bigger than your biblical foundation, you've already lost. The power of Solomon's brand wasn't in his style, it was in his substance. It wasn't about the gold, the temple, the throne. It was about the spirit of wisdom and excellence resting on everything he touched. That's why the queen was breathless. Not because of hype, but because of holiness expressed through design, order, and leadership. Your brand should do the same. When people experience your business, your product, your leadership, do they see the fingerprints of God? Do they leave your presence thinking, only the God of heaven could have built this? That's the kind of impact you were created to have. Let's make this personal for you. There's a good chance you're still trying to make things happen in your own strength. You've got skills. You're sharp. You know how to make things move. But deep down, you haven't fully surrendered your excellence to God's glory. You're still chasing outcomes, still measuring your worth by how much you produce, by how impressive you seem, by how others respond. And here's what God might be saying to you right now. Something simple, but devastating if you're really listening. You're trying to take credit for what I want to use to make my name great. That hits hard, doesn't it? Because the truth is, you've built strategies without surrender. You've built systems that are smart, but not sacred. You've made progress, but not purpose-driven progress. And it's wearing you down, because anything you build for your own name, you'll have to sustain in your own strength. But when you release it, when you say, God, everything I build is for your glory, you step into a grace that multiplies what's in your hand and removes the weight from your shoulders. That's when the shift begins. Let me speak to you plainly. Your brand is built when God's name is lifted. It's not about showing off your skills. It's about showing the world what God's excellence looks like through your hands. That's what Solomon did. He didn't just quote wisdom, he demonstrated it. And it wasn't just what he said that stunned the queen. It was what she saw. His servants, his leadership structure, his palace, even how he walked up to the temple. Wisdom isn't just heard, it's seen. You can say you're walking in kingdom excellence, but if what you build lacks order, lacks clarity, lacks excellence, what testimony is it bearing? Don't get it twisted. God isn't calling you to build flashy things. He's calling you to build faithful things, but do it with such clarity, precision, and anointing that it demands attention. Because attention isn't the goal, but it becomes the result when your work reveals his glory. Solomon teaches us this. Your influence increases when your motives are purified. Your wealth multiplies when your wisdom matures. And your platform becomes powerful when it serves a holy purpose. So if you're a coach, a creative, a CEO, or even just starting out, let this be your new standard. Excellence isn't optional in the kingdom. It's evidence of God's nature. And when you operate in it, you don't have to beg for influence. It comes to you. People will seek you out. Doors will open. Provision will find you. Not because of who you are, but because of who you represent. So don't just build your name. Build God's name into everything you do. At God Built, that's what we're all about. We don't teach hype. We don't chase trends. We build with the same ancient principles that made Solomon's kingdom unshakable, because they still work. And if this is stirring something in you, if you're realizing it's time to rebuild your business, your mindset, or even your goals on the foundation of God's glory, stay with me, because we're just getting started. In the next section, I'm going to show you exactly how Solomon monetized his wisdom, not by selling out, but by serving at the highest level. We'll unpack how he became a consultant to kings and queens, and what that means for your calling today. But before we move on, let me ask you this. What's one area of your life or business that God is calling you to upgrade in excellence? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear from you. Let's keep going. Now that you're starting to see that your excellence is meant to reveal God's glory, it's time to talk about what that looks like in motion, how your wisdom becomes wealth, not through striving, but through service. This is where Solomon's business model starts to unfold in a very practical and powerful way. Let's talk about what it means to become a consultant to your peers. Go back to 1 Kings 10:2 and 10. The Queen of Sheba didn't just show up to admire Solomon's wealth. She came with questions, and not surface-level questions either. The Bible says she came to test him with hard questions. In other words, she came as a seeking leader in need of divine insight. And Solomon had answers. He wasn't just wise for himself. He was positioned by God to serve wisdom to others at the highest level. What happened next is important. She didn't just thank him. She didn't just give him applause. She paid him. And not lightly. She gave him gold, spices, and precious stones in abundance. Today's scholars estimate that the value of her gifts would be well over $200 million in modern currency. Now pause for a moment. Why would a queen give that much just for advice? Because the value of Solomon's insight exceeded the weight of her wealth. His wisdom solved royal-level problems, and she was willing to honor that with royal-level compensation. That's what happens when you stop hoarding what you know and start sharing it with those who need it. Solomon didn't beg for that opportunity. He didn't advertise it. He didn't go out looking for clients. His wisdom was so refined, so God-given, so full of clarity and authority that it attracted the high-level seekers. And here's what you need to understand. You're not exempt from this model. This isn't just a story about an ancient king. It's a blueprint for what happens when you take what God has taught you and you begin to teach it to others. You've walked through battles. You've built things. You've learned through trial and error, through prayer and pressure. And there are people, right now, praying for the wisdom you carry. They're not looking for someone who's perfect. They're looking for someone who's been where they are and knows how to help them rise. That's where your consulting begins. You consult your peers. That means you start with those who are a few steps behind you in your area of strength. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know more than the person you're serving. And when you package your wisdom, when you steward your skill with excellence, you begin to walk in what the world might call high-ticket consulting, but what heaven calls kingdom stewardship. This isn't about ego. This isn't about exploitation. This is about honoring the value of what God has built inside you. The Queen of Sheba didn't feel taken advantage of. She felt enriched. That's the mark of a kingdom consultant. You don't extract value from people. You pour value into them. And in return, you are honored accordingly. Don't miss this. Solomon didn't monetize manipulation. He monetized mastery. He had governed well. He had built systems of excellence. He had lived the wisdom he taught. So when he opened his mouth to speak, his words carried authority, experience, and anointing. That's why people paid. That's why they came from around the world. Let's be real. You don't need more content. You need more clarity about your own value. You've been sitting on insights that others are desperately searching for. You've been downplaying your journey, when in reality, it's full of solutions that could shift someone's future. And I'm not talking about surface-level inspiration. I'm talking about specific, strategic solutions born from your process, your perspective, and your partnership with God through it all. That's what qualifies you to teach. That's what positions you to consult. And if you're thinking, but I'm not Solomon, let me be clear. You don't have to be. You don't need a throne. You need a testimony. You need a clear message rooted in experience and anchored in biblical truth. You need the boldness to show up and the discipline to refine what you carry into something others can receive. So here's your next step. Start treating what you've mastered like it's worth something, because it is. Package it. Present it. Position yourself as a servant, not just a sharer. Don't just post inspiration. Offer transformation. Offer frameworks, guidance, mentorship, and strategy. The world is filled with noise, but people are still hungry for clarity. If you can help them see, think, and act differently based on what you've already lived through, you've got something worth offering. And don't feel weird about charging for it. The Queen of Sheba didn't hesitate. She understood the principle. When you receive wisdom, you respond with honor. That's a biblical exchange, not a worldly transaction. So here's what you need to hear today. Don't just be good. Be so good they pay to learn from you. Not because you're chasing money, but because you're stewarding what God gave you in a way that multiplies His impact through your life. That's the power of consulting as a kingdom builder. You serve with depth. You lead with integrity. You speak with clarity. And you get compensated, not just for your time, but for the weight of wisdom you carry. This is how you begin to step into financial stability and spiritual fulfillment at the same time. You're not choosing between the two. You're walking in both. And if you're serious about building a business or ministry that reflects that same excellence, stay locked in. Because next, we're going to talk about how Solomon didn't just serve individuals. He served nations by speaking to crowds. He scaled his wisdom, and you can too. Before we go there, I want to hear from you. What's one area of mastery you've walked through that others constantly come to you for? Drop it in the comments. Let's start identifying your consulting zone right now. And if this just confirms something in your spirit, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to God Built. This isn't about getting followers. It's about raising up leaders like you to build wealth and impact with boldness and integrity. Let's keep going. Now that you understand the value of consulting one-on-one, it's time to lift your eyes to a larger horizon. Because Solomon didn't stop at serving individuals. He scaled his wisdom to the nations. And if you're going to follow this biblical business model, you need to learn how to do the same. This next principle is all about communicating to crowds for scalable impact. You've been faithful with the few. Now it's time to multiply what you carry. Let's go to 1 Kings 10:24, where it says, "The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart." Not just one nation, not just a circle of peers, the whole world. People traveled from every direction, from distant kingdoms, just to sit under his voice. Why? Because wisdom, real, God-breathed, Spirit-led wisdom, attracts. Solomon's gift wasn't hidden. He didn't keep it to himself. He didn't sit in a back room with all that divine insight, waiting for someone to discover it. He released it. He shared it. He put it on public display. And God honored that by drawing the nations to him. Let that speak to you. You've got wisdom God put in your heart. Not just facts, not just experiences, but Spirit-tested revelation. And that wisdom isn't just for your private journal. It's not just for your inner circle or your small group. It's meant to be multiplied, broadcasted, published, proclaimed. Your voice is a vessel. And when God fills that vessel with kingdom insight, it's not so you can stay quiet. It's so you can set others free. It's time to stop hoarding what heaven gave you and start sharing it at scale. Now you might be thinking, but I'm not a speaker. You don't have to be. You just have to be faithful to release what God gave you. That could be through writing a book, hosting a podcast, leading a webinar, teaching in a group, launching an online course, or even showing up consistently on social media with depth and clarity. What matters is not the medium, it's the message. And what makes the message powerful is that it comes from a life that has been through something, partnered with God through it, and come out with wisdom that works. Too often, believers limit their impact because they think scaling their voice feels prideful or self-promoting. But listen closely. It's not prideful to share what God has revealed. It's prideful to keep it to yourself. Because the moment you treat divine insight like it's for your benefit only, you've stopped being a steward and started being a hoarder. And let's be clear, this isn't about becoming a social media influencer. This is about becoming a kingdom communicator. Someone who releases wisdom, not to gain attention, but to ignite transformation. Someone who doesn't just post quotes, but speaks with conviction, teaches with clarity, and delivers real substance that sets people free. Solomon didn't just speak to be heard. He spoke to be helpful. And the people who came to him didn't leave empty-handed. They left equipped. They left with new paradigms, new vision, and new strategies to lead their own kingdoms well. That's what you're called to do. You've got an assignment, not just to build, but to teach while you build, to speak while you lead, to let your voice carry solutions that reach beyond your zip code, beyond your industry, beyond your culture. And here's the practical side of this. When you scale your wisdom, you scale your income. The same way Solomon received massive gifts from individuals, he also created a system of ongoing generosity from the crowds. People didn't just come once, they came consistently. They didn't just take, they brought value in return. His impact didn't shrink his capacity, it funded it. This is where some of you need a shift. You've been stuck thinking that the only way to grow your income is to work more hours, take on more clients, or increase your prices. But Solomon's life shows you a different path. When you scale your wisdom, you scale your reach. And when you scale your reach, income becomes a byproduct of impact. Let me make this practical. Think of it this way. That process you've developed for your business, turn it into a course. That testimony you've lived through, write the book. That clarity you've gained about leadership, relationships, parenting, faith, or finances, start teaching it. That system you built to help people get results, host a masterclass or workshop and lead people through it. People are hungry for clarity. They're drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. And if you can provide it, if you can put language to what others are struggling to grasp, you will become the voice they seek. And here's the beautiful part. When you serve with your voice, God expands your platform, not for your glory, but for His name to be made great through what you carry. The same Spirit that filled Solomon with wisdom lives in you. And God doesn't give you insight to keep it trapped in your notebook. He gives it so you can set others free, create kingdom solutions, and multiply impact in ways that glorify Him and bless others. But you've got to stop playing small. This is your moment to stop shrinking in false humility and start walking in faithful boldness. Because when you multiply your wisdom, you multiply your legacy. Solomon's wisdom didn't die with him, it shaped generations. Your wisdom can do the same. So let me ask you, what's one message God has put in your heart that you know needs to be heard? Not someday, now. Drop it in the comments and make a decision to release it this year. And if this section lit a fire in you, if you know it's time to stop hiding your voice and start using it to serve others, then do this. Stay with me, because in the next section, we're going to talk about how Solomon didn't just create one-time moments of impact, he created ongoing systems of income and influence. We're going to unpack the kingdom model of continuity, how to create recurring revenue that sustains your mission and expands your capacity. You're not here to blend in. You're here to build and to lead with clarity, conviction, and kingdom impact. Because if you're going to build something God can bless, it can't be built on inconsistency. It has to be steady, stable, and scalable. Let's keep going. If you've been tracking with Solomon's model so far, then you already see the power of wisdom in motion, how consulting your peers and communicating to crowds positions you to multiply your impact. But there's another piece you can't afford to miss, especially if you're serious about building something that lasts. Because in the kingdom, it's not enough to just have moments of success. God is a God of sustained provision, not random breakthroughs. That's where the principle of continuity income comes in. Solomon didn't just have big moments, he had consistent movement. And you need the same. Let's pick up in 1 Kings 10:25 where it says, "Year after year, everyone who came brought a gift, articles of silver and gold, robes, weapons, spices, and horses." Did you catch that? Year after year, not once, not occasionally, consistently. Solomon's income wasn't based on unpredictable events. He wasn't operating on sporadic highs and lows. He had a system of recurring revenue, built into the way people honored the wisdom he released. He created an environment where value flowed both ways. Not only did he give insight, but he received gifts in rhythm. That's not random generosity. That's structured honor. That's continuity. This is the part where most believers drop the ball. You work hard to land a client, book a speaking engagement, sell a product, And then you have to start from scratch again. You live in survival mode instead of sustainable flow. You keep asking God to bless what you're building, but you haven't built it in a way that can actually sustain blessing. Here's the truth. God doesn't just bless moments, He blesses models. And continuity is a model that mirrors His own nature. God is faithful, consistent, and unchanging. Shouldn't the systems you build reflect that same nature? Solomon didn't just rely on one-time offerings. He didn't build a business that only worked when the right person showed up with a big gift. He created a rhythm where people knew what to expect, and he delivered value that warranted regular honor. That's not manipulation. That's maturity. So what does this mean for you? It means you need to start thinking beyond one-time exchanges. If your business, ministry, or message is only creating income when you launch something new, speak somewhere, or land a client, you're vulnerable. You're building on adrenaline instead of alignment. God is calling you to build systems of continuity. Income that flows consistently because the value you provide is consistent. That looks like monthly memberships where you serve a group with ongoing value. Coaching retainers where people commit to work with you over time. Subscription products or services that meet a recurring need. Content platforms where you teach, train, and equip with ongoing access. Licensing your intellectual property so others can implement your method with honor. The goal isn't to get rich quick. The goal is to build with wisdom. Solomon understood that if you want to lead at a high level, you can't be chasing provision. You have to create systems that allow provision to chase you. Let's be honest. You're probably tired of living in launch mode. You're probably frustrated by inconsistent income, inconsistent engagement, inconsistent opportunity. That's not a spiritual problem. That's a systems problem. Solomon's system was built on consistency. His kingdom didn't rise and fall with every gift that came through. It expanded because he operated from a model that welcomed, managed, and multiplied recurring honor. Here's what you need to ask yourself. Is what you're building strong enough to last? Or are you so focused on the next sale that you've forgotten to build sustainable streams? You might be sitting on wisdom that could be packaged into a monthly mentorship. You might have tools and templates that could serve hundreds of people on a recurring basis. You might already be doing work that people would gladly pay for regularly if you simply offered it in a way that allowed them to. Don't just think like a creative, think like a kingdom architect. Don't just chase the next win. Design a flow that carries fruit month after month, year after year. Solomon didn't apologize for the gifts that came to him annually. He didn't question if he was being too bold, too structured, too entrepreneurial. He knew that what he was building required resource stability to keep operating at a royal level. You need that too. Not so you can live in luxury, but so you can lead with longevity. And remember, this isn't about greed. This is about governance. You're not just building for today, you're building for legacy. And legacy doesn't live off of leftovers. It lives off of systems that are designed with wisdom and fueled by continuity. If you only earn when you show up, you've still built a job, not a kingdom system. And while there's honor in work, there's greater power in stewardship. The kind that multiplies without burnout. The kind that grows without grinding. The kind that sustains your family, your team, your mission, without making you a slave to your calendar. That's what continuity income unlocks. It's not just about making money while you sleep. It's about creating a predictable flow of provision that allows you to focus on what really matters. Serving well, leading strong, and expanding the impact of what God has trusted you with. So take inventory. Where in your current model can you build rhythm? Where are you repeating the same work over and over again that could be systematized, recorded, automated, or offered on a regular schedule? Because the solution isn't always more effort. Sometimes it's better structure. And when your structure aligns with wisdom, provision becomes steady. In the next part, we're going to uncover the posture that held it all together, servant leadership, because God funds what reflects his heart, not just his strategy. I'm going to show you why all of this only works if you build with the right heart. You've seen how Solomon consulted. You've seen how he communicated. You've seen how he created continuity. But none of that matters if you miss the mindset behind it. Everything we've unpacked so far, consulting your peers, communicating to crowds, creating continuity, these are powerful strategies. But strategy alone doesn't move heaven. There's a posture behind Solomon's success that most people overlook, and if you miss it, everything you build will rest on the wrong foundation. Because God doesn't just fund systems, he funds stewardship. He doesn't just bless structure, he blesses the servant-hearted. If you're going to walk in the kind of wealth that glorifies God and lasts through generations, you need more than brilliance. You need humility rooted in kingdom assignment. That's where the servant leadership mindset comes in. Jesus said it best in Matthew 23:11. The greatest among you shall be your servant. That wasn't just a religious quote. It was a kingdom principle that Solomon lived out long before Jesus ever said it. Think about it. Solomon was the most powerful man on earth in his time. He had access, authority, and influence beyond measure. Kings and queens honored him. Gold flowed into his kingdom. His name was known throughout the nations. But with all that power, Solomon never lost sight of who he was ultimately serving. He didn't use his wisdom to manipulate. He didn't use his wealth to dominate. He used everything God gave him to bless the people he was called to lead. Solomon saw himself as a servant king, positioned not to impress, but to serve with excellence. And that's the mindset you have to carry if you're going to build something with God. Because wealth is never the reward, it's the result. The reward is impact. The reward is knowing that because you said yes to your assignment, people's lives are different. So ask yourself honestly, can people say their life is better because of your service, not your talent, not your charisma, not your products, your service? Because when you build from that place, when you let your business, your leadership, your brand, your platform become an extension of your servanthood, that's when you unlock favor that doesn't fade. At God Built, this is what we stand on. We don't teach strategies to chase success. We teach you how to build with wisdom and service at the core, so that success becomes sustainable. It's easy to chase visibility and forget responsibility, but kingdom builders know better. You don't lead to be admired, you lead to make others better. Solomon's wealth didn't just reflect his intelligence, it reflected his posture. He saw leadership as a tool for transformation. His wisdom made others stronger. His governance created peace. His decisions protected and empowered those under his rule. That's what you're called to do. You're not building a business just to make money. You're building it to solve problems, serve people, and steward purpose. And when that becomes your driving motive, heaven resources the mission. Why? Because God funds what reflects his heart. You want divine backing? Stop building for applause and start building for impact. Let every product, every service, every decision be an act of service. Yes, you can charge. Yes, you can profit. But profit is not your purpose. Service is. This is where many people miss it. They confuse kingdom stewardship with passive humility. But servant leadership doesn't mean shrinking back. It means showing up with confidence, authority, and excellence, all aimed at the betterment of others. You don't play small, you play strong, because people are counting on what God put in you. When you show up with this mindset, money becomes a byproduct. It follows wisdom in motion. It flows through service. It responds to excellence rooted in love, not ego. Because here's what you need to hold on to. Money is a result. Wisdom in motion is the root. You don't chase results. You plant, water, and steward the root. You pour into people. You sharpen your gifts. You study what solves problems. You remain teachable and spirit-led. And over time, you'll look up and realize that everything you need has been added unto you, because you sought the kingdom first and served with faithfulness. That's not theory. That's Bible. It's why Solomon didn't have to market himself. He served so well, people came looking for him. His leadership was a magnet because it was built on love for God and service to people. If your heart posture is right, your influence will grow. If your motives are clean, your money will be blessed. If your strategy is surrendered, your systems will bear fruit. So check your heart right now. Are you building to be remembered, or are you building to make others rise? Because legacy doesn't come from being impressive. It comes from being impactful. Your name doesn't carry weight because of your net worth. It carries weight when lives are better because of what you poured out, what you solved, what you taught, and how you served. So as you continue building your consulting business, your content platform, your continuity income, never let your heart drift from this anchor. You are a servant leader, a builder sent by God, a vessel for His wisdom, a solution for someone's pain. When you keep that mindset, God won't just bless what you build, He'll breathe on it. And when God breathes on your business, your leadership, your brand, what you build won't just make income. It will make impact and inheritance. This is what separates kingdom entrepreneurs from everyone else. Now stay with me, because in the next section we're going to break the lie that says, well, I'm not Solomon. I'm going to show you why you don't need to be a king to build like one, and why the strategy you just learned is not only accessible, but ready for you to apply right now. You've just seen the heart behind it all. Solomon's success wasn't about status. It was about service. He led with humility, served with excellence, and built with the intention to bless others. But if you're still thinking, that sounds great. For Solomon, let me stop you right there. Because this next part is where excuses die and activation begins. You don't need to wear a crown to operate in kingdom authority. You don't need royal blood, a massive platform, or $1 million business to step into this strategy. You just need clarity, willingness, and obedience. You've convinced yourself you need to have it all together before you can teach, lead, or serve. But the truth is, you've already been equipped. You've walked through things that others are still trying to survive. You've gained insights through prayer, mistakes, experience, and perseverance. That journey has value, not just for you, but for someone who's waiting on the other side of your obedience. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for a guide. So here's the shift. You don't need to be a king. Just teach someone what you've learned. That's it. Kingdom wisdom doesn't require a platform. It requires a posture that says, Lord, I'll use what you gave me to serve others boldly. Solomon's strategy is not locked in history. It's not some ancient blueprint that only works in palaces and thrones. It's timeless. It still works today, in the marketplace, in your business, your ministry, your creative space, your coaching program, your leadership team, everywhere. But you've got to stop disqualifying yourself. You keep waiting until you feel more prepared, more polished, more anointed. But God never asked for perfection. He asked for willingness. Here's the truth bomb you need to carry with you from this moment forward. God doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be willing. Willing to show up even when you feel unqualified. Willing to serve with what you know while you keep learning. Willing to let your story become someone else's survival guide. Willing to teach the lesson you had to live through the hard way. Willing to go back and help the version of yourself who used to be stuck, confused, or afraid. That's how legacy is built. Not by having all the answers, but by sharing the answers you do have with humility and boldness. And here's what's beautiful. As you release what's in your hand, God releases what's in His. You don't need the whole plan to take the first step. You just need a heart that says yes. This is where your Solomon strategy becomes real. You consult by offering what you've mastered. You communicate by multiplying your message. You create continuity by building consistent systems of value. And you do it all from the mindset of a servant. But it starts with saying, God, I'm willing. And from that posture, everything changes. So if you've been watching and wondering, can this really apply to me? Hear this. Yes, it can. And yes, it must. Because what's in you is too powerful to stay buried. What you've lived through is too valuable to stay hidden. And the people you're called to serve are too important to keep waiting. Now that you know you don't need to be royalty to walk in kingdom strategy, let's take it one step further. You've seen the model. You've felt the call. But how do you actually begin implementing this right now? Let's lay it out step by step. An action plan you can start today. Now that the excuses have been laid to rest and the call has been made clear, it's time to move from insight to implementation. Revelation without application is just spiritual entertainment. And God didn't reveal this strategy so you could admire it. He revealed it so you could apply it. That's what we do here at God Built. We don't just study the word, we build with it. And Solomon's model isn't just meant to inspire you. It's meant to activate you into action. So how do you actually do this? How do you take everything we've explored and start putting it into motion in your life, your business, your ministry, or your calling? Let's break it down into 3 simple, practical steps, the exact blueprint Solomon lived and the one you're called to follow. Step 1. Consult, help others in your area of mastery. Start with what you know. You don't need a fancy certification or years of credentials to begin consulting. You just need a clear understanding of what you've overcome, what you've built, and what you've been anointed to solve. There is something you've navigated with God's help, whether it's in business, leadership, parenting, communication, systems, personal growth, healing, or finances, that others are still stuck in. That's your lane. That's your zone of kingdom impact. Solomon advised kings and queens, you may not be sitting across from royalty, but the people God sends to you are just as valuable. You have the insight they're praying for. And when you offer your wisdom with clarity and confidence, they will honor it. Not just with gratitude, but with value in return. That's not transactional. That's biblical. That's stewardship. If you don't know where to start, ask yourself this. What do people constantly ask me for help with? What do I find myself solving or explaining over and over again? That's usually the area where God has given you both skill and grace. Package that. Offer it. Build a framework or process around it. Create a container where people can access your help, whether it's one-on-one, group sessions, a mentorship program, or even a Q&A session. Consulting isn't about being the expert. It's about stewarding your experience to serve others. Step 2. Communicate. Speak publicly to broaden your reach. Once you begin helping people individually, it's time to expand. Because kingdom wisdom was never meant to stay private. The Bible says in 1 Kings 10:24 that the whole world sought Solomon to hear the wisdom God put in his heart. They didn't just want access, they wanted exposure. And Solomon didn't hoard that wisdom, he shared it openly. You're called to do the same. Your voice is your kingdom delivery system, and it's time to stop waiting until everything is perfect before you use it. You've got to start teaching, speaking, sharing, recording, writing, whatever it takes to multiply what God has put inside you. Start where you are. Host a live stream, launch a podcast, lead a webinar, publish a devotional, teach a workshop, open your mouth, and let God fill it. Because when you speak from revelation and real-life application, people listen. Not because you're flashy, but because what you're saying sets them free. You've spent years gaining what others need in minutes, and one message can break confusion, release vision, and activate purpose in the people you're assigned to. This isn't about building a following, it's about broadening your fruitfulness. The more people your voice reaches, the more lives you can impact. Don't shrink back. Don't second-guess your calling. Speak with boldness. Let the wisdom in your heart go to work in the world around you. And here's the powerful part. When you combine consulting with communication, your impact multiplies exponentially. You're no longer just helping people one-on-one. You're shaping mindsets at scale. That's when your message becomes movement. Step 3. Create continuity. Offer consistent, scalable value. We already explored this in Solomon's model, but it bears repeating because it's the glue that holds the rest together. If you want long-term impact and sustainable provision, you need to build systems that allow people to access your wisdom consistently, not just occasionally. Solomon didn't rely on spontaneous generosity. He created an ecosystem of recurring honor. People brought him gifts year after year because his value didn't expire after one interaction. And yours doesn't either. Ask yourself, how can I serve people month after month in a way that creates both transformation and stability? That might look like a monthly mentorship. It could be a subscription-based community. Maybe it's a digital product library, a discipleship membership, or a licensing model for a process you've created. The format doesn't matter as much as the faithfulness of the delivery. Continuity doesn't mean perfection. It means predictability. It means you've structured your wisdom in a way that others can depend on. Because when people can depend on your value, provision will follow. Not because you manipulated it, but because you stewarded it. And here's the kingdom key. Recurring income stabilizes your mission. It frees you from the constant cycle of chasing revenue so you can focus on what matters, serving people deeply, leading with clarity, and building what God gave you with strength and longevity. So there it is. The model is simple, but powerful. Consult, communicate, create continuity. This is Solomon's business model. It's strategic, scalable, and most importantly, it's sacred, because it doesn't just elevate your income. It elevates your impact, your stewardship, your service, and your alignment with heaven. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to apply what's already been proven. And make no mistake, these are ancient principles, but they still fund modern dreams. Whether you're just getting started or you've been building for years, this model can unlock the next level, not just for your business, but for your purpose. Because when you build the way God designed, you don't have to beg for results. You just have to walk in wisdom. And now that you know what to do, we're going to end this journey the same way Solomon began his, by pointing it all back to the heart behind the work. Because none of this matters, consulting, communicating, continuity, if you forget who you're doing it for. Let's talk about serving before multiplying, and how that posture invites heaven to breathe on everything in your hand. You've now been handed the same blueprint that made Solomon the wisest, wealthiest king in history. Not because he craved fame, but because he walked in divine alignment. You've seen how consulting, communicating, and building continuity aren't just business moves. They're biblical mandates when done with the right heart. And now, after all the strategy, it's time to return to the root of it all. Because the truth is, multiplication always follows servanthood. Solomon didn't start with money. He started with a heart to serve his people well. He asked for wisdom so he could govern righteously, lead effectively, and make decisions that blessed others. He was a king, yes, but he was also a servant. And that's what unlocked everything else. God doesn't multiply ego. He multiplies service. So if you've been wondering when the breakthrough is coming, if you've been building, launching, creating, and still feel like you're falling short, this might be your answer. Don't focus on what you're trying to gain. Focus on who you're called to serve. Because when your heart posture aligns with heaven, Favor becomes your default. Strategy becomes anointed. Work becomes worship. And what's in your hands starts multiplying because your motive is clean. That's the thread that runs through everything we've covered today. You consult not to prove your worth, but to serve someone stuck where you used to be. You communicate not to gather applause, but to impart clarity where confusion has ruled. You build continuity not for passive income, but for predictable impact that stabilizes both your mission and those you're called to help. So let's get practical for a moment. Before you try to scale your message, ask yourself, am I serving well where I am? Before you launch your membership or course, ask, am I delivering value that brings transformation? Before you build your offer, ask, am I more focused on income or impact? Because impact is what invites God's increase. That's what God built is about. It's not just about teaching believers how to make money. It's about teaching you how to build kingdom wealth with kingdom character, so that what you build doesn't just generate profits, but creates legacy. Let me speak plainly to you. You don't need more hustle. You need more honor for what God's already placed in your hands. You don't need another strategy before you settle your servant mindset. When you serve first, with integrity, humility, and excellence, multiplication is inevitable. God breathes on what looks like small obedience and turns it into generational impact. You've been called to build, but you've also been called to bless. You've been entrusted with wisdom, yes, but now it must go to work. You've been given a voice, a skill, a process, a revelation, not just for your benefit, but so others could rise through it. And here's the promise. When you live and lead like that, God multiplies what's in your hand. He'll expand your influence. He'll send you the right clients, connections, and doors. He'll establish your work and anchor your mission because you're not chasing success. You're walking in wisdom. So if something in this message stirred your spirit, if it opened your eyes to what's truly possible when you align your building with God's blueprint, then don't let it stop with you. Let it ripple. Go ahead and like this message to mark the moment this truth hit home. Share it with someone you know is called to more, but needs the clarity to walk it out. And if you haven't already, subscribe to God Built, because every insight we release is designed to equip you with the wisdom, strategy, and confidence to build with boldness, faith, and purpose. And as you move forward, building, serving, stewarding, let this closing word be etched in your spirit. Don't chase success, chase wisdom, serve well, and watch God multiply what's in your hand. That's how you build something eternal. That's how you honor God with your gifts. And that's how you walk in the same legacy of purpose, wealth, and wisdom that marked Solomon's life. This is your moment, not just to dream, but to build. You're not waiting on a breakthrough. The kingdom is waiting on your obedience. Let's go build what God has already called blessed. As always, remain rooted in Him. Remain God-built.